So there's a lot of people in Congress that are upset that the Bush administration and the intelligence, they weren't briefing Congress. But this, watch what John King says about this.
But if you listen to some of the other members, the Senate Intelligence Committee, for example, was briefed last week, according to a member of the committee, on some of this intelligence. Members who have security clearances can pick up the phone and call and ask for information.
So members of Congress who have security clearance, or there's lots of, they could just pick up the phone and call them and say, tell me what you know. They could get to do that, and one of them did.
Among those, Senator Angus King of Maine, who's one of the, he caucuses with the Democrats, but he's an independent. He's a more measured voice normally on issues like this. He says, yes, there's alarming intelligence, but then he adds this.
I don't think there's faulty intel here necessarily. I think the intel may be accurate, but the unanswered question again is, are they reacting to our assertions of action in the Middle East, or are we reacting to them? I think.
So he's not sure if Iran is reacting to our aggression or if we're reacting to their aggression. He's not sure. Well, let me show you a map, because what the fuck is Iran doing in the middle of all our military bases? What are they doing? They're being aggressive with us. Iran's being aggressive against all our military bases and our aircraft carriers that are in the ocean right off their country. Is it? So I didn't hear that, but I will say that's a lot of bases around Iran. And for anybody to think we're doing anything other than provoking them into a war are full of shit. So that's exactly what's happening. They got a lot of balls setting up shop over our oil. I'm going to tell you that right now. A lot of balls. So here's another thing from Brian Williams, which I think it's, you know, it's just amazing to me that he got in trouble for stolen valor, for pretending that he was in war combat and he wasn't, and being a patriot, and then he does this with the flags. He's got flags. He can't have more flags around him. Bad move. There's some fucking news happening. Bam, bam. There's a guy in a $6,000 suit. Bang.
The U.S. State Department today ordered all non-emergency personnel to leave the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad and our consulate in northern Iraq. Now, pause for just a second and remember, this is the kind of thing
that I usually lie about. But they gave me my show again. And I'm sitting in a bunch of 12,000 flags, unironically. What the fuck? That's really, all right. So I don't have time for this. But you know, they all act like they don't know this. Now you know this and I know this. Do you think they know this?
And he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Go through the countries again?
Well, starting with Iraq, then Syria and Lebanon, then Libya, then Somalia and Sudan, and then back to Iran.
So we've done every one of those countries except Lebanon right now. And which, you know, that's just like an afterthought. We'll go into Lebanon in a second.
A Lebanese guy in the audience just raised his arms.
So that's happening right now, and it's happening in front of everyone's eyes, and people are pretending like that's not what's happening, and they're pretending like it's new with Trump now. This has been going on forever. This is fucking not new. And I've showed you this once before, but it's worth showing to you again. This is at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. How to build U.S.-Israeli coordination on preventing an Iranian nuclear breakout. Yeah, so Israel and the United States have to coordinate to keep Iran in check. And this is Patrick Clausen, and watch what he says.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough.
Crisis initiation. That's what they call starting a war. Crisis initiation. It's really tough. Meaning starting a war and getting away with it in front of your own people. It could be tough.
And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for U.S. interests. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall he had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode.
Boy, it's weird for Jeffrey Dahmer just to admit the way we start every war. Because he looks like just as bloodthirsty as Jeffrey Dahmer, and he looks just like Jeffrey Dahmer. But here he goes. He's got more ways.
We didn't go to war with Spain until the until the Maine exploded. And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war.
So they want someone else to start the war. So after that, we can't do it ourselves directly. It would be better. So how do we start a war? How does somebody else start a war? Let's listen.
One can combine other means of pressure with sanctions. I mentioned that explosion on August 17th. We could step up the pressure. I mean, look, people, Iranian submarines periodically go down. Someday one of them might not come up. Who would know why?
Put this fucking show in the front lines, man. God damn it. Every time I see someone like that, it's like, put him out there, shove a gun in his hand.
I want you to go take this village, Richie Rich.
Yeah, that sounds like that's a mob threat. You know what I mean? That's exactly a mob threat. Oh, Jimmy, it'd be a real shame if you fell down a flight of stairs. You know what I mean, guys? Submarines fall down all the fucking time. You know what I mean? They get trip and fall, hit a fucking head, and then it's just a submarine. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's a nice country you got there. It'd be a shame if something fucking happened to it.
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
A real shame.
I mean, there's some lovely people in your country, and hate to see them get their heads blown off or whatever.
You know what I mean? It'd be awful if we just accidentally drone striked a nice, lovely country like that because it didn't pay the fucking vig on time.
You know what I mean,
Jimmy?
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Hey, let's have this be the rest of the show. I like how this is going. I like this. Nothing but mob threats. Let's do it.
So
talking to you, Iran.
We can do a variety of things if we wish to increase the pressure. I'm not advocating that. But I'm just suggesting that this is not a either-or proposition. It's just sanctions has to succeed or other things. We are in the game of using covert means against the Iranians.
They just admit it right out in public. They just fucking say it, and no one cares. And Chris Hayes and Rachel Maddow will never fucking tell you that guy said that, ever.
You want to know what a sociopath looks like?
That's what it's supposed to be. But Trump is the guy. Trump is the bad guy. It's not like these guys haven't been doing this all along. He's at the Washington Institute for Fuckface Policy.
We could get nastier about it.
Yeah, we need to get nasty. And guess what? He said we need to have someone else start the war. Someone else start the war. Well, CBS Evening News, Iran or Iranian-backed proxies used explosive to blow a hole in 4 ships, 2 Saudi oil tankers and 2 others near the Strait of Hormuz, according to an initial assessment of the U.S. team sent to... Oh, so it's Iranian-backed proxies. So it's not Iran, it's proxies. It's just... What's that? You know, some fucking guys the CIA paid to go blow up some shit. That's what Iranian proxies are. That's CIA-funded motherfuckers who are blowing holes in Saudi Arabia. I wouldn't doubt it if Saudi Arabia blew a hole in their own fucking ship, because that's how much they want the United States to invade Iran.
That's what Yemen is. Yemen is a goddamn proxy war. That's what we're doing in Yemen. It's the same bullshit, It's the same bullshit.
So, and they're all on board. This is Michael McFall says a democratic Iran not only would free Iranians from repressive theocracy, but produce closer ties between our two countries. Real security, economic, and moral benefits for both Iranians and America. You know how we're closer now with Libya and Iraq? You know how we're really close with them now? That's what that shit is. Here's Bill Kristol. He says, very true. And great to see a bipartisan consensus for regime change in Iran. It would be happily ironic if totally inadvertently tough sanctions followed by the JCPOA followed by withdrawal from the deal caused so much whiplash that the regime crumbled. And you know who's not going to stand up for this shit? Is someone like Medea Benjamin, ladies and gentlemen. She's going to tell the truth when these motherfuckers lie in front of a podium in $5,000 suits. Here she
comes. It's time for all nations to join us in holding Iran to a new level of accountability for its destructive behavior, especially its lawless pursuit of ballistic missiles. Thank you.
That is the most ridiculous thing I have seen. The world community wants to keep the Iran nuclear deal. Our allies are the Germans, the French, the British. They want to keep in this deal. The world community wants to keep the deal. Let's talk about normal countries. Let's talk about Saudi Arabia. Is that our ally?
I love how she doesn't miss a beat. She gets so much information out in fucking 30 seconds. It's amazing. Watch this.
Sir, they are the biggest threat to the world community. And let's talk, you're hurting me. You're actually hurting me. I wanna ask, do you think these sanctions are hurting the regime or they're hurting the Iranian people? They're hurting the Iranian people.
And look at that cocksucker sitting there like a fake phony motherfucker that he is. What a pussy that guy is.
You are making a case for a war with Iran. How did the war with Iraq turn out? You're doing exactly the same thing we did in the case of Iraq. We don't want another war in the Middle East. Let's see. How does Iraq turn out? How did Libya turn out? We have the people of Syria suffering. And how dare you?
Ma'am, these guys are trying to start an illegal war. Now please, be polite.
The issue of Yemen. It's the Saudi bombing that is killing most people in Yemen. So let's get real.
Let's hear it for Medea Benjamin.
The most flexible anti-war protester ever. She just keeps fucking, they're taking the sanctions and I don't know what you're doing. You have to stop Iran. You will never, why are you letting this war happen? I really don't understand why you're doing that. It's really fantastic. Put your hands off of me, sir. Put your hands off of me, sir. I'm doing yoga and an anti-war rally in front of a fucking crazy-ass Hitler-looking Nazi fuck.
Chuck?
Jimmy, this is all fine and good, your little horse and pony show that you do here. But regime change in Iran would benefit not only that part of the world, but our country as well. We would bring freedom to the Iranians, and we would make it so perhaps in the future they would execute homosexuals in the town square as our ally does Saudi Arabia, and other things as well. And the fact that they are a terribly anti-Semitic nation, despite having the largest Jewish population in the Middle East outside of Israel. But forget that. They are very anti-Semitic because they don't like Israel. So we should bomb the fuck out of them. That's all, as a senator, that's my personal opinion.
Next live Jimmy Dore show is June 5th. That's a Wednesday at Hermosa Beach Comedy Club in Hermosa Beach, California. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a link for all tickets. We might be coming to your town. And if you love the show, please become a patron. Please support the show. We give you hours of bonus material every week. And please click that bell and make sure you're subscribed. Even if you think you are already subscribed, they unsubscribe people every day. Just check. Thanks for your support.